That morning, I was sitting in my newly built house with a cup of coffee when I heard a key turning in the lock. My son walked in with his wife right beside him. Behind them stood her parents, both holding suitcases. Without missing a beat, my daughter-in-law pointed upstairs and said as if she owned the place, "My parents are going to live upstairs. You're getting old anyway. You don't need all these rooms." I set my coffee cup down. No shouting, no tears. I just noted one thing to myself. They had just walked into my house on their own sheer stupidity. The click of the front door lock was the first warning sign. Nora, 64, was sitting in her cozy kitchen on the ground floor of her newly built home in the suburbs of Philadelphia. She was sipping her morning coffee when she heard footsteps in the hallway. It was a Tuesday morning, a time when her son Travis was supposed to be at work. But Travis wasn't alone. Next to him stood his wife Chloe, carrying a large bin of bedding. Squeezing in behind them were Chloe's parents, loaded down with heavy suitcases. Nora calmly set her mug down, stood up, and walked into the hallway. No hugs, no greetings. Chloe flashed a fake, sugary smile and gestured toward the stairs leading to the second floor. That upper level was supposed to be a guest area and a painting studio for Nora. "Nora, so good to see you," Chloe said loudly, brushing right past her. "My parents gave up their apartment downtown. It just makes so much more financial sense for them to move in here. You mostly stay downstairs anyway, and you don't need all this space at your age." Travis gave me his spare key. Travis stared at the floor, completely avoiding eye contact with his mother, muttering something about helping each other out. Nora didn't feel the urge to scream. She watched the scene unfold with absolute clarity. Chloe's father was already hauling a heavy floor lamp up the stairs. They had made a decision about her property without saying a single word to her. They clearly saw Nora as a lonely widow who could easily be pushed aside. "The upstairs isn't set up for tenants," Nora said, her voice firm and steady. Chloe just gave a short laugh, dropping the first box onto the hardwood floor upstairs. "Don't worry about it, Nora. We'll make it work. This is what's best for the family." Nora didn't argue. She knew words were useless right now. She walked back into her kitchen, shut the door, and reached for her notepad. On the very first page was the number of the contractor who had installed her front door. Chloe thought she held all the power because she controlled Travis, but Nora owned the house, and she was ready to rewrite the rules immediately. The next morning, Travis and Chloe left early for work. Chloe's parents were still fast asleep upstairs. By 7 a.m., Nora was already sitting at her kitchen table, waiting. At 8 sharp, the truck of Mr. Miller, a local locksmith, pulled into the driveway. Nora opened the door before he could even ring the bell. She explained the job in short, precise sentences. This wasn't about legal threats. It was about making a physical change. Within 2 hours, the locksmith removed the old deadbolt on the front door. In its place went a modern digital smart lock system with a keypad and a discreet built-in camera hidden in the peephole. At the same time, Mr. Miller installed a heavy-duty deadbolt on the solid wood door leading up to the second floor. That door now completely cut off the ground floor from the rest of the house. Nora paid the locksmith cash on the spot and filed the receipt away. She programmed 2 codes, one for herself and one for Travis. Chloe didn't get one. Around 11 a.m., Chloe's parents came down the stairs to head to the kitchen. They came to a dead halt in front of the locked interior door. Chloe's mother rattled the knob, but the heavy wood didn't budge an inch. Nora cracked the door open just a sliver. "Your space is upstairs," Nora said calmly. "The downstairs kitchen is my private area." Travis has a code to the house, but this inside door stays locked from now on. You'll need to set up your own kitchen appliances upstairs. Chloe's mother stared at her, completely flabbergasted. This is outrageous. Where are we supposed to cook? That's for you to figure out, Nora replied, closing the door. She heard angry muttering on the other side, but she felt no guilt whatsoever. She had paid for this house with the money she and her late husband had saved over 40 years. Chloe had tried to hijack her home through the back door. Now her parents were trapped in a cage of their own making. The real showdown began that evening when Chloe and Travis got home from work. Nora was sitting in the living room reading a book. She heard the frantic, frustrated tapping on the new keypad outside. Travis finally managed to open the door using the new code Nora had texted him. Chloe stormed into the house, her face bright red with rage. What is the meaning of this? Nora, why doesn't my key work anymore? And why is the stairway blocked off? My mother called me crying. They couldn't even make a cup of coffee. Travis stood behind her, visibly sweating and completely overwhelmed. Nora slowly set her book down on the coffee table. She didn't stand up. She just looked Chloe dead in the eye. This is my house, Chloe. I decide who lives here. Since your parents are living here now, the financial terms change effective today. She pulled a document from a folder. It wasn't a lease, but rather a detailed breakdown of the house's utility and maintenance costs. Since Travis hasn't been paying rent because he's my son, that perk is officially over. Starting next month, I expect half of the utility bills and a flat fee for the use of the upper floor. Furthermore, I am stopping the monthly help I've been giving you guys for your car loan. Chloe gasped. You can't do that. We counted on that money. How are my parents supposed to live? They gave up their apartment. That was your choice, Nora said matter-of-factly. She turned to Travis. The automatic monthly transfer for your car has already been canceled, Travis. I took care of it at the bank this morning. Travis swallowed hard. He knew his mother was a woman of her word. In that exact moment, Chloe realized she had severely underestimated Nora. She had assumed an older woman would tolerate anything out of a fear of being lonely. But Nora controlled the very foundation Chloe's plans were built on: the money and the space. Over the next few days, the atmosphere in the house was ice cold. Chloe tried a new tactic. Since she couldn't convince Nora directly, she used her parents' presence upstairs to apply pressure. They started making noise on purpose. Late at night, Nora would hear heavy, deliberate pacing right over her bedroom ceiling. Chloe's father would drag furniture around, and her mother kept the TV blaring at full volume. They wanted to wear Nora down so she would reopen the interior door and drop her financial demands. But Nora had no intention of backing down. She responded with pure logic. She went to Home Depot, bought high-quality acoustic weather stripping, and perfectly soundproofed the interior door as well as her own bedroom door. The noise was instantly muffled to a faint whisper. At the same time, Nora noticed that Chloe had tried to tamper with the electrical panel in the basement to obscure their power usage. Nora promptly called the electric company and had a separate submeter installed for the upstairs unit. Every single kilowatt hour used upstairs was now recorded in black and white. When Chloe found the itemized bill for their first week sitting on the kitchen table that Friday, she completely lost her temper. She cornered Nora in the hallway. "You are a selfish, bitter old woman," Chloe hissed. "We wanted to be a big family, but you're walling us off like strangers. My parents can't take it up there anymore. There's no kitchen, and it's freezing. The thermostat upstairs is set to a standard 68 degrees, Nora replied, completely unfazed. If you want it warmer, you use more energy, and energy costs money. Your money, Chloe, not mine. She walked right past Chloe without waiting for an answer. Checking her phone, she saw a notification from the front door camera. Chloe's parents had already started loading bags back into their car. The pressure was working. On Saturday morning, the smart lock app on Nora's phone flagged some unusual activity. Chloe was standing at the front door, trying to let a technician into the house. She had called a locksmith from the next town over to drill out and replace the digital lock, desperate to regain control of the main entrance. Nora watched the live feed on her tablet from the kitchen. She opened the door at the exact moment the locksmith was setting up his tools. The man looked up, startled. "Good morning," Nora said politely to the locksmith. "I am the sole owner of this property. This young woman is merely my son's wife and has zero authority to make structural changes to my home. If you damage this lock, you will be held personally liable for the property damage." The locksmith looked from Nora to Chloe, who had gone completely pale. "Is that true?" the man asked impatiently. Chloe stammered, "This is a family home. My husband lives here too." The locksmith immediately packed his tools back into his bag. "You guys need to settle this between yourselves. I'm not getting caught in the middle of a domestic property dispute. You still owe me for the service call, though." He walked back to his truck, leaving Chloe standing in the driveway. Nora looked at her calmly. "That was an expensive mistake, Chloe. You could have saved yourself the trip fee." Chloe was shaking with anger. "You are ruining us. Travis is losing his mind because of you. Travis needs to learn to speak for himself," Nora said, shutting the door. She went into the living room and drank her tea. She knew Chloe was completely isolated now. Her plan to gradually take over the house and relegate Nora to the role of a quiet grandmother had completely imploded within a week. The physical reality of property ownership was far stronger than Chloe's entitlement. On Sunday evening, Travis asked to talk. He came into Nora's kitchen alone. He looked exhausted, with deep, dark circles under his eyes and slumped shoulders. Chloe had been breathing down his neck for days, but the financial strain was now incredibly real. Without Nora's monthly cash injection for the car, combined with the new utility bills, their combined income wasn't cutting it. Nora offered him a chair, but didn't pour him any coffee. This wasn't a cozy family visit. It was business. "Mom?" Travis started quietly. "We can't keep doing this. Chloe's parents want to move out, but they don't have the cash for a deposit on a new apartment. Could you maybe give them a loan? Just for a few months. It would solve the situation upstairs, and we could get back to normal." Nora looked at her son. She remembered raising him to be independent, but Chloe had made him weak. "Travis," she said firmly, "I built this house to enjoy my retirement in peace. I am not a bank funding your wife's bad decisions. They rushed to break their lease just to push me out." "That's not true," Travis tried to object. "Yes, it is," Nora interrupted. "They packed their bags without even asking me. That is a total lack of respect. My ultimatum is simple. Chloe's parents need to be out of my house by the 1st of the month. If they don't have an apartment by then, they can stay at a motel. I won't contribute a single penny. And if Chloe has a problem with that, she is more than welcome to go with them." Oh. Travis stared at the table. He realized right then that his mother was completely done compromising. The boundaries were set in stone. He nodded slowly, stood up, and left the room. The ball was in their court. The first day of the month arrived on a gray, rainy Thursday. Nora sat by the window of her ground-floor studio, watching the driveway. A small rented U-Haul truck was parked outside. Chloe's father and Travis were carrying out the boxes and the heavy floor lamp, they had marched up the stairs so triumphantly just weeks before Chloe stood by the truck, arms crossed, glaring up at Nora's windows. Nora remained out of sight behind the curtain. She felt neither joy nor bitterness. It was simply the restoration of order. Once the upstairs was completely cleared out, Travis came back inside one last time to return the key to the interior door, which he had borrowed temporarily for the move. They found a small one-bedroom on the edge of town, he said quietly. The rent is high and Chloe is furious with you. She says she's never stepping foot in this house again. Nora took the key and placed it safely in her desk drawer. That's her choice, Travis. Everyone is responsible for their own feelings. If she had shown me an ounce of respect, it never would have come to this. Travis stood there awkwardly for a moment, clearly hoping for a word of regret, but Nora remained silent. She knew that showing any weakness now would just be an invitation for the next boundary violation. I guess I'll go then, he finally said. Nora nodded. Goodbye, Travis. As the car doors clicked shut outside and the U-Haul rolled away, a deep, beautiful silence washed over the house. The second floor was empty again. Total sovereignty over her property was fully restored. But Nora knew the story wasn't quite over. Chloe would eventually try to strike back some other way. In the weeks following the move, the second floor remained locked. Nora used the time to thoroughly air out and clean the rooms, erasing any trace of the people who had tried to claim her space. Travis stopped by every now and then, usually alone during the week, while Chloe was at work. The visits were short and practical. They talked about the weather or the yard, but the topic of Chloe and her parents was completely taboo. Nora noticed a change in Travis. He had become more cautious and reserved, but also far more respectful. One night, Nora noticed a notification on her security app showing someone creeping around the house. It was Chloe's mother. She was standing in the dark in front of the keypad, blindly punching in random numbers, hoping to guess the code. The camera captured her face in crystal clear, high definition. After 3 failed attempts, the system automatically locked the keypad for 30 minutes and sent a silent alert to Nora's phone. Nora didn't bother going to the door. Instead, she just opened her app and tapped the button to turn on the outdoor floodlights. The sudden blinding blast of halogen light startled the older woman so badly that she nearly tripped over her own feet before scurrying away into the darkness. The next morning, Nora forwarded the security video to Travis via text message without a single word of commentary. No accusations, no long texts. Just the video file. 2 hours later, a short reply came back from Travis. I'm so sorry, it won't happen again. I talked to her. Nora smiled to herself. That was the power of hard evidence. No one could claim she was being paranoid or unfair. Her technology and her emotional distance made her completely bulletproof to the psychological games of her daughter-in-law's family. 6 months passed, and the nature surrounding the house bloomed into a beautiful spring. Nora decided not to let the upstairs go to waste anymore. She permanently transformed the space into her art studio. Large canvases now stood exactly where Chloe's parents had stacked their suitcases. The natural light pouring through the massive windows was absolutely perfect for her painting. The house was finally exactly what it was always meant to be, a sanctuary of creativity and peace just for her. Travis had adapted to the new reality. He understood that access to his mother's home wasn't a birthright, but something based entirely on mutual respect. Chloe hadn't set foot on the property since the day her parents moved out. She and Travis lived in their own apartment, learning to get by on what they actually earned. The financial independence Nora had reclaimed forced the young couple to finally grow up and fund their own lives rather than banking on a widow's inheritance. On a sunny Sunday afternoon, Nora was sitting on her patio, enjoying a cup of coffee. Travis had come over to help mow the lawn. When he finished, he sat down a respectful distance away from her. "Mom," he said, looking out over the manicured yard. Looking back, "I'm really sorry about how everything went down. Chloe and her parents talked me into it. I thought it would make things easier for everyone." Nora took a sip from her cup. "It's in the past, Travis. All that matters is that you know where the boundaries are now. My house is my home, not a safety net for other people's poor planning." Travis nodded in silence. There was nothing left to say. Life in the suburbs settled into a quiet, peaceful rhythm. Nora woke up early every morning, walked up to her second-floor studio, and painted. The digital smart lock worked flawlessly, and while the interior door wasn't strictly locked anymore, everyone who entered knew the real boundary was firmly established in their minds. Nora had proven that you don't need to yell, scream, or drag people to court to protect your dignity and your property. You just have to maintain total control over your own resources. Sometimes she thought about the stories people told about aging parents who signed everything over to their kids, only to end up being tolerated in some tiny back room of their own home. That almost would have been her fate had she quietly accepted Chloe's entitlement on that Tuesday morning. But her swift, decisive actions had completely rewritten that ending. She hadn't waited around for an apology. She had simply created facts on the ground. It was the most important lesson of her life. You don't establish boundaries with words. You draw them with actions. As the sun slowly dipped below the tree line, bathing the house in a warm golden glow, Nora walked through her home. She checked the locks, not out of fear, but out of a sense of routine and a duty of care to herself. The house belonged to her. Every brick, every key, every single cent. The gates to her personal fortress were shut tight against anyone who wished to exploit her, and they would never be opened for them again. Nora turned off the hallway light and went to bed. She slept deeply, soundly, and in absolute peace.